and another effective one. Matthew breaks a tackle, breaks another, gets a block. There are no flags and the race is on. And Matthew goes 90. Burrow with the snap. Here comes the blitz. Burrow steps away from it, throws, catch made! Justin Jefferson has it at the 38, racing down the far line, sideline, 10-5, touchdown, Tigers!
Another play fake by Burrow, and a deep strike, and an open receiver, Jamar Chase, another touchdown!
Daniels pulls it, takes it himself, he's got the sideline! Jane Daniels off to the races, and a bang back inside, he takes it to the house, 85 yards for Daniel.
Go ahead and say it, Ed.
Go Tigers!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Geauxld Standard Podcast. I'm your host, Joe. I'm so thankful you're joining us here today. I hope you had an awesome week. I hope you have a great weekend upcoming. And remember, I am to be your number one place and source for news for LSU sports, news, updates, and unsolicited comments from your boy. And look, we love Purple Hill, but it is all gold, baby. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you smash that like button down below. YouTube has an algorithm that does not push this video unless you get involved. So make sure you jump down in those comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know how you're feeling. I respond to every single comment under every single video. Make sure you support, and I appreciate you. So we're going to talk about LSU football. We're going to talk about LSU women's basketball, LSU men's basketball, and unfortunately, LSU men's baseball. So before we get locked in, again, make sure you got that subscribe button hit down below. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Spring football is kicking up a notch, and the football team actually has a scrimmage today. So you should have a lot of news coming out of that scrimmage today. I'll be sure to upload you and update you on everything that I hear. So let's get going. We're going to talk about, unfortunately, we're going to talk about LSU men's baseball as they lose a midweek game against Bethune-Cookman. Excuse me. I don't even know what to say about the men's baseball team at this point. They're consistently inconsistent, number one. It's always something. It's just, I just can't put my thumb on it. Maybe a lot of bad evals, maybe a lot of guys just not stepping up in places where they were expected to step up. Some figuring out with bringing in a whole bunch of new guys. Maybe they don't mesh as well as what the coaching staff would have wanted or thought they would have. But it's ugly at this point. They lost a game to Bethune-Cookman. That's right, Bethune-Cookman, a SWAC school. Again, no diss to SWAC schools because I think LSU may have lost to another SWAC school this year. But to have a defending national championship baseball team and to go out and lose to a team like Bethune-Cookman, it is not necessarily that you lost. It's the way that you lost, because LSU in this game had a lot of unforced mistakes and errors, a lot of pass balls, a lot of hit batters, a lot of walks. My God, for some reason, we just cannot put the ball across the plate. I don't know what it is, if it's the players, if it's the coaching, if it's the strategy, if it's the teaching or the placement. It's all off. None of it's working. It's very rare that I don't turn on an LSU baseball game and see a multitude of walks. So you allow a team like Bethune-Cookman to come into the box in a midweek game, and they beat you. I think the score was like 10-6. And it was a tie game into one of those innings to where LSU just went off the rails and they just started walking a lot of people. They started hitting a lot of people. And next thing you know, it's 10-6. And then we can't recover at that point on offense. So here's to hoping they get it together. I feel like I've been saying it all season. Such a disappointment so far of the defending national champions and where we thought they would be at this point in the season, as opposed to where they are at this point in the season. Very, 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 very surprising. Again, it's a combination of things. I can't put my finger on one thing. And then I go and watch the Ole Miss game last night, which Ole Miss has a weekend series against LSU this weekend. As I'm doing this is on Saturday. I don't know. The game hasn't kicked off to my knowledge quite yet, but who knows by the time you hear this, it may have already kicked off. But they lose a Friday night game at Ole Miss. And again, it's a lot of same issues. Not a lot of great pitching. They didn't give up a whole lot of runs. They gave up 6, but Casey Evans doesn't really come out with that number one LSU pitcher energy. I mean, gives up 2 runs in the first inning after LSU puts 2 runs on the board for him in the first inning. And it just comes out, and it's a disappointing performance for the number one guy in LSU's pitching staff. And it's a far cry from what we saw last year, where you had Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson, who were pretty much guaranteed wins for LSU. And you go a few years back to somebody like Paul Skeens. I mean, we've come a long way from Paul Skeens, Cade Anderson, Anthony Ianson to where we are now with Casey Evans. And again, he has moments and has flashes where you can see it and you can understand why they have so much faith in him and why they have so much promise for him. But he just isn't able to bring it all together all the time. I don't know if that's because he's still young, it's his second year or what, but for some reason, he doesn't quite seem like LSU typical Friday night starter. It's just so much struggles and so much inconsistency to where it's hard to depend on that every Friday night, because we're used to sending out Cade Anderson every Friday night, and it was pretty much a guaranteed win unless we just, spit the bit and didn't swing the bat at all that night. So the LSU coaching staff, the LSU players, the LSU pitching staff, everybody's got a lot of work to do. I mean, they got to step it up. They got to clean it up. They got to get it together, because right now this team just looks out of sorts. I mean, just when they reel you back in, they go and do something crazy. I mean, they won 2 season series at Tennessee, Kentucky, and then they come back and lose to Bethune-Cookman after you had a great emotional series against Tennessee. You come back and lose midweek to Bethune-Cookman. So at some point, either they are what they are, or they got to put the pedal to the metal and improve quickly, because the SEC tournament is right around the corner. The tournament is right around the corner. You don't want to be one of those teams where it happens a lot in baseball, where you win the title one year and then you don't make the tournament the next year, or you have a really bad performance or showing the next year. We don't want to be in that number. So here's to the LSU team potentially, hopefully stepping it up, changing things, and making the change and improving the rest of the season. All right, so next up, we'll talk about a little bit about LSU men's basketball. There's not a whole lot there so far. As far as the portal, they're keeping things mum as far as visitors. LSU is in the running for some high-dollar transfer portal guys so far. I know the one guy, I think his name is Haggerty, out of Kansas State, who was like one of the leading scorers in the NCAA last season. LSU is in one of his front-running positions. There's another center prospect from Alabama that's transferring to LSU, supposed to be high on. But other than that, they're kind of keeping things mum, which, sometimes I like their strategy, sometimes I don't. If you can deliver, you get the guy, I'm all for it. But sometimes, there's just not a lot of information there, because they're wanting to keep everything tight-lipped and not raise the numbers up too far. So LSU, they lost every player except for Jalen Reach, who was one of their guards. Robert Miller, who was the other player from last season's team, finally jumped into the portal recently. So the only returning member of the basketball team will be point guard Jalen Reese, and everybody else will be new to the men's basketball team. So it is a rebuild for Coach Will Wade and the staff. And here's to them being competitive, because basketball is probably the worst when it comes to NIL and the dollars and the numbers that get thrown around. So here's to them being competitive and getting a winner in the PMAC. I know people are excited. People are looking forward to Will Wade and his return to the PMAC and getting this team back competitive and competing for an NCAA tournament. I think it's going to happen, but we have to practice patience. We have to be realistic. Hopefully, look, if they get the right guys, they can compete next season. But it's all about getting the right guys. How much money do you have to get multiple of the right guys? Because it takes more than one nowadays. You have to have 2 or 3 guys and some depth beyond that. So here's to Will Wade and the LSU basketball team putting it together and putting a productive, quality team on the court next season. All right, next up, where most of the stuff is going on, is going to be LSU women's basketball. We had Bella Hines jump in the transfer portal, along with Divine Burridge, Kaylin Gilbert, and there was one more that got in there who I can't recall at this time. But Bella Hines was a surprising one to jump in the portal. Jada Richard. How did I forget about that? Jada Richard, LSU starting point guard from last season, did jump into the transfer portal. So we lost Jada Richard, we lost Bella Hines, we lost Divine Burridge, and it's a little surprising. But Mulkey and staff do feel like they need to get a little bit more top heavy as far as like top tier talent. So they got a few girls on campus right now. They got a few transfer portal candidates on campus right now. They did get a commitment earlier from a guard from Florida who was a 3-year starter, averaged about double digits. So they did get some depth there, but they're going to need a couple of big pieces. They need a real deal, presence in the paint, and they need a point guard. They obviously need a point guard now, as you lost Jada Richard, you lost your starting point guard, so you definitely need a point guard. And I want LSU to get someone that's a distributor. They haven't had that under Moku. Maybe not so much with the points thing, because that's going to come, but they haven't had somebody that just understands the game, understands the pace, can slow it down when need be, can pick it up when need to be, can really distribute and set up the offense and initiate the offense. That's what I want LSU to get. I hope they get the most dominant person in the portal that's in the paint. I know they're trying really hard to push for a 5-star that was let out of her letter of intent. I can't remember the school, but I think her last name's Edwards. They would love to get someone like her as a star player. But yeah, the LSU team, women's basketball team, is going to have a little bit of a different look to it next year. I mean, you still have Malaysia and you still have Michaela, who will be the two cogs of the offense, obviously. You have Zakiya Johnson right now, who's still there, who's going to step up into a bigger role next season. Grace Knox, who should step into a bigger role next season. So you do have still a lot of the same players there, but you hate to lose someone like Bella, who developed so much as a freshman, play a lot of meaningful minutes down the stretch, had the right type of mentality and kind of sort of, she just had that spunk about her and that energy to where she just had that dog in her that you really, really do like. So you hate to lose that. You hate to lose a 2-year person like Jada Richard from Minden State, who you develop over these 2 years, and she's become a better player year over year. But, when you lose in the Sweet 16, when you have Elite 8 Final Four expectations, there are some changes that need to be made. So, we have to sit back and watch and see what Mulkey does, how she improves his team, how she makes them better, because you don't want to get too far away from that championship without being in the running again. So here we go with a rebuild on the LSU women's basketball team. You're going to see a lot of new faces next year. So hopefully they can get the right type of pieces. Like I said, you need a legit post presence from the portal. You need a legit point guard from the portal and a couple of the depth pieces that I think you're okay. All right, last but not least, the LSU football team, who has made it to the middle spot of the spring. They're having on Saturday, they are having a closed scrimmage, closed to the media. There's no video access. There's no recording at all or anything. So you'll hear a lot of reports from that scrimmage, but there isn't any video allowed. So you'll just hear word of mouth. You'll just hear kind of what people saw. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. But leading up to that, just a few things to catch you guys up on this week. There was a panic earlier in the week. We saw Sam Levitt post something, and he said something about a setback, and it was with his foot. But he had to go get his screws removed from his prior, procedure and surgery. So Lane Kiffin did come out and say he will probably be unavailable for the duration or the remainder of the spring. But with Sam, you're just trying to get him to September. We're trying to make sure he's ready for week 1, game 1. So at this point, he did do a lot of individual drills. I don't think he did any 7-on-7 or team drills, but he did do individual drills while he was out there. So he looks to be ahead of schedule, and this is just a setback. It's a part of it, getting the screws removed. Now he's going to build that strength back up and hopefully come back stronger than ever, and we're looking for him to be the guy first week of September, so that's all that matters. One thing I did hear, for the longest first few weeks of camp, we did hear the offensive line was Jordan Seaton, Devin Harper, Braylon Moore, Aluba, and Weston Davis. But I am hearing, or I have heard the past few days, that Bo Bordelon has been taking first-team reps at guard, which is very interesting to say the least. But sometimes that's what it takes. It takes new eyes. It takes new staff to get something out of players who we've seen in the rooms for a while. They haven't produced, and maybe this is Bo Bordelon's chance to produce. So that was interesting that I heard that. I'm sure we'll see more today and hear more today about who the first-team offensive line was, but I have been hearing that Bo Bordelon has been stepping up and taking some first-team reps from Devin Harper. All right, can LSU be a team that depends on 3 freshmen D-line? Now, for the most part, Deuce Geauxld has been running with the ones, and Richard Anderson has been rotating in, as one of the first guys to come in off the bench to relieve, and then Lamar Brown hasn't made it on campus yet, and we did see Coach Kiffin the other day kind of say that they're waiting on Lamar to get there, whether he makes an impact at end. He mentioned him at edge, possibly to even replace Gabe Rutherford. I just think they're so ready to get Lamar on campus and figure out where to get him on the field. But it will be interesting to say that LSU could possibly be leaning on and depending on 3 freshman defensive linemen, those being Richard Anderson, those being Deuce Geauxld, and Lamar Brown. Is it a bad thing? Not necessarily. I mean, you don't want to have to depend on freshmen in big roles that much, especially on the defensive line. But these guys, if they're as good as advertised, you expect them to make an impact once they get things figured out. And like I said, Deuce Geauxld has been taking reps with the ones for a long time. Richard Anderson has been getting rave reviews about his size and how he can move at his size. And then Lamar Brown was the #1 athlete in the country on the recruiting services. So you believe that he can make some sort of impact when he steps on campus. It's just about where. So I found it interesting to say, could we be depending on 3 freshmen? And I think so. I think you need to prepare yourselves to have 3 freshman defensive linemen make an impact this season. All right, the next one up is going to be cornerback depth. From everything I'm hearing, DJ Pickett has stepped up. PJ Willen has stepped up in a leadership role and improved. And by all accounts, Jakeem Jackson has been looking good as well. He's in there. My question becomes, and you can do this all day, but if LSU experiences any type or any sorts of injury to the cornerback room, then where you go? You obviously got Havon Finney there, who's been looking good as a freshman by all accounts. You got Michael Turner, who's a converted wide receiver with a lot of speed that they seem to like and seem to like how he's molding into the cornerback position. You got Aiden Anding, who's a young guy who was a freshman last season. So you got a lot of guys that could be talented, but not a lot of experience there. Even Jakeem Jackson missed a lot of time last year with injury. He missed time the year before with injury at Florida. So the only experience you got in the room is DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland, who kind of split time last season across from Mansour Delane. So I think PJ and DJ will be fine for the most part. You're putting a lot of weight on Jakeem Jackson or whoever the third guy is, because they got to come in and be able to hold up, because by all accounts, PJ's been going down some in the nickel and the slot when they're playing that type of defense. So that other guy's got to be able to hold up, and right now it looks like that guy may be Jakeem Jackson. My only qualm about the transfer portal at all was LSU didn't bring in another corner that had some experience. I thought they could have brought in another guy that maybe had started, been a good contributor, just to have somebody to lean on just in case. But Cora's going to lean on his development and his coaching in the room with his guys, and you can't do anything but go with it. So we will see what comes of that. But I do have questions about cornerback depth after PJ Woodland and DJ Pickett. LSU has a doldrum, whatever word you want to use, a super collection of wide receivers. We've been hearing a lot about the starters, or potentially who I think are going to be the starter. Jackson Harris, consistently with the ones. J.C. Brown looks like the wide receiver 1. Eugene Wilson is back at practice, and he's looking electric. I told you guys he's going to be a huge slot option for LSU. He's so smooth. He's so fast. He's so quick. And then obviously Winnie Watkins, who stepped up and took a lot of the time from Trey Wilson while he was recovering from injury. Those four are going to be probably your first four. Corey Barber has been getting rotated in some, but you hear stuff from guys like Roman Mothershed. I hear Malik Elzy was making plays the other day at practice, the wide receiver they got from Illinois. So I just think there's so many guys and so many bodies in the room. It's a lot. It's going to be a lot of the sort of the spread out sort of thing with wide receivers. I think like Ole Miss maybe had like 6 wide receivers last year over 500 yards. I think you may see something like that more so than just one guy, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type of year with 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. I think there's going to be a lot of bodies and a lot of guys getting a lot of yards, a lot of catches in this offense because they're going fast. Everything you hear from the practices in the camp is fast pace. So you got to have guys ready. You got to have a lot of guys ready. You got to have guys in shape. They've been running them like crazy during practice to get them in shape, to be able to have the ability to think and think smart while they're tired, while they're exhausted, still be able to make plays and still be able to think properly and make those plays. Dylan Jones, another guy that I've been telling you guys about since the moment he signed with LSU. This guy is going to make an impact for LSU this season. Do not be surprised if Dylan Jones is making critical carries and critical 4th down, 3rd down runs for LSU. I'm telling you right now. By all accounts, he has been looking great in practice. He brings that physical presence that LSU hasn't had in a while from a runner. Really, really physical between the holes. Obviously, Harlan Bear is going to be the guy, but it would not surprise me if by some point in the season, Dylan Jones is maybe the second guy, and you see Caden Durham maybe take a step back if he isn't ready. It's my only thing about Caden. I hope that he's fully recovered, fully healthy, and can get back to their freshman form, because I think if there's any trepidation, Dylan Jones will happily take those carries. We talked about the tempo, and it's been a repetitive theme. Lane wants to go fast, 7 seconds or less offense. So you've been seeing a lot of that when the players have been talking. They've been talking about the conditioning and how fast they've been going and how the pace has been picked up. It's so different from what they, were coached under last season. And you want to see a better conditioned team because the way Lane runs his offense, it's quick. It's, hey, plays over, get to the next play. Plays over, get to the next play. And the team has to be ready and conditioned for that. So I think you see a different that's going to be a huge kind of different standout point about the LSU offense this season is that how fast they go. And then last but not least, we heard Coach Kiffin talk a little bit recently about how he thought the defense was ahead of the offense. When I hear things like that, I don't take a panic. I know some people may panic like, oh, God, does that mean the offense is going to be bad? No, it just means the defensive staff is the same one from last season minus a few coaches. For the most part, all the same players are in place except for a few. So it should be the defense should be ahead of the offense right now because the offense is having to replace literally everybody except for Braylon Moore and Weston Davis. Literally everybody else is new on the offense. They got an entire new coaching staff on the offense, a new head coach, a new offensive scheme, new quarterback. It's going to take a while for that stuff to get in motion, to get in rhythm, to get cohesion. So when you hear things like the defense is ahead of the offense, try not to freak out. Please don't freak out. It is okay. It's a part of camp. This is what happens. So, not anything to be worried about there. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because I know that's been a thing, and some people may be, oh, my God, does that mean the offense is not going to be good? Look, if the offense came out first day or first week or first 2 weeks in camp when they started looking like the 19 offense, then that means our defense we got some problems on defense because this defense has been together for a couple of years now on the same coaching staff, and they shouldn't just be getting ran off the field, by a brand new offense that's just coming together. So I just wanted to put that in your ear, let you guys know what we've been hearing about spring camp. Like I said, please make sure you jump down and comment in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're hearing. Let me know your thoughts on everything that I said, because this is the LSU Geauxld Standard Podcast. Well, we love purple, but it is all gold, baby. And we're aiming to be your number one place for LSU news, updates, and unsolicited comments from your boy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Please make sure you go down and hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications and let them know that I said to play net. We'll see you next time.